Hi, it's Terry, and for part 12 we'll start with the rack. Now this rack, if you look at the top, you can see the square sections. There's 3 of them there. Now the centre one is 75mm from edge to edge, and now the outer and inner one, they used to be 75mm as well, but I've cut them back to 60, right, to reduce the length of it. And now the width, I've took 1/2 inch each side as well off the width because it was too big. Now this rack, I had this from the Stafford show back in April, big auto jumble there is. Now this is the only press steel rack I could find there, like the original style. And what I've done is I thought, well, it looks pretty similar to the Jara 350 SB rack with the square and then the rectangular shape either side. So I thought that would be suitable. So that's done then, and I'll leave the primer on there for quite a few weeks so that the primer can shrink back, and if there's any imperfections they'll show up and I can nib it back then and re-prime it. So you probably noticed the tank as well. That's been primed for months, but if you look at it now you can see that it's sprayed black, and I've put the clear coat on, or petrol resistant lacquer. And if you notice, you can see that white line, the fluorescent light I've got in the shed. And if you look at it, if I get this steel rule, now if you see the rail, you've got one there and then just above the toolbox there. So if I put this rule about 3 inches above this rail, keeping it parallel, if I put that there and then you look at the tank, it just matches up where that light is in the tank. So what I'm after then is a line round the tank, the white line, to follow this up and round and down like that. Now when it comes to it, when it's all painted, there's a guy coming over who's going to do all the coach lining. I mean, he's a real professional. Now if you look at the tank here, this emblem and that, I did have a go myself actually, painting it, see what it was like, and it's really difficult, and I wasn't happy, so I took it off and I'm going to wait for the coach liner to come. I mean, that'll probably be after this Christmas. But I've got a photo actually, and I'll just show you now how it looks when I put it on. Here it is. Right, so it didn't look too bad, but I'm sure the coach liner would have shook his head. And I think at the end of the day, when he puts the white enamel on the tank, round here and on there, and it'll be round, obviously around the mud guard, toolbox, front fender, when he starts doing all that, at least it's all going to be the same kind of white, the white enamel, because there are different shades, so maybe it's just as well. So the tank's on then, like I say, obviously, and there's petrol resistant lacquer on, so I've filled it with petrol now. Put the fuel filter on, coil's still on, so she's ready to fire up. I can actually have a bit of a ride, but before we do, we'll have a look at the seat. Now if you look at the seat here, I've changed this seat rail. Now the design is basically the same as the other one, apart from I've just added this gusset shape here. Now there's two reasons that I've added this gusset shape. Now the first reason is because of the angle here. If you look at it against the rear guard. Now one of my YouTube friends pointed that out in one of my other films, Mark, and he noticed straight away when I'd done a bit of an update. I think it was when I was changing the seal in the Jara RT. I had a quick update on it, and he noticed there that it runs more or less parallel with the guard. So that is the first reason, to give it a nice shape. And the other reason is just as important as well, if not more, because what I think it does, having this gusset shape coming in, I think it brings the seat rail into the frame more as well, so I think it looks much better. Now the other thing as well is the headlamp. Just go over here to the bench. Now I've assembled the headlamp, obviously painted, lacquered, fitted the ignition. It's all ready to go on the bike, and that will go on the bike in the next film. Now the other thing is the battery, and the battery is going to be temporary. At least I think it's going to be temporary. It's going to be fitted at the back here, but I think it's going to be temporary because the kind of system I want is a vape electronic ignition, and with this system you don't need a battery. You can run it straight from the generator. So what that means is I can keep the bike clean, but what I will need is I'll need a capacitor. Now what that does is, if you're running off a generator with no battery, you could pull up at the lights or wherever, the bike's ticking over, and the actual lights can go dim and start oscillating. It's no good for the indicators either, or the horn. So you need a capacitor, and it's a similar size to an ignition coil, 2 terminals at the top, and that's where your battery leads will go onto the capacitor, and that stores enough current just to keep the lights bright when you pull up or the bike's ticking over. And the capacitor can be mounted here, just on this side, and I could have the coil here with the HT lead running straight down. So that's the plans, but like I say, I've made the battery cover. Here it is, just the top, it goes straight on, and then the base. I'll assemble that in a minute and we'll have a look, but like I say, it is temporary, and once I've finished with it, if anybody wants it, just send us a message and I'll post it so you're free of charge. You're welcome to it. But anyway, so the next thing then is to actually take the bike out. Right, so back in the shed then, I really enjoyed that first test ride, and I just want to thank my brother David, who came round this morning and filmed this first test ride. Now I've left his link in the description, townsreunited.com, well worth a visit. And there's this battery box as well before we go. As you can see, just the top, the bottom, and then these fixings at the side just to clamp it together. So I mean, if anybody can use the covers, you're welcome to it. Right, so in the next vid then, part 13, I've got to get the headlamp on, front fender, and the backlight. I've got to sort a suitable backlight out for it as well. Now the chain guard, if you remember I was going to actually do that, should be on now, but I've had a few messages asking how I do the fabrication with the sheet metal, so I thought the chain guard, I'll do a separate vid about fabricating it, and that may help. Right, so we'll leave it there for now, and I'll catch you in part 13.